Right, let's talk some numbers now. 744. That's how many hours until the early voting process starts in the critical swing state of Pennsylvania. The Keystone State will begin mailing out ballots for early voting September 16th. 4. That's how many hours until Vice President Harris will make her first major policy speech since becoming the Democratic nominee. Harris will lay out her plan to lower housing costs, prescription drug prices, grocery prices, and taxes on the middle class. She'll also try to draw a stark contrast to former President Trump, whom Harris describes as a friend to billionaires. And then this number, 26%. That's how much the cost of cereal is up as President Trump focuses on the economy as well. He blames the Biden administration policies for fueling inflation.
Grocery prices have skyrocketed. Cereals are up 26%. Bread is up 24%. Butter is up 37%. Baby formula is up 30%. Flour is up 38%. And eggs are up 46%. And many items are up at much higher rates than that.
I want to bring in Rena Shaw, political analyst and former senior GOP congressional aide, and Michelle C. Williams, Democratic strategist in federal government and legislative analyst. Good morning to you both. He's not wrong. I still get sticker shock every single time I go to the checkout at the grocery. And I'm like, wait a minute. I look at my cart and I look at my receipt and I'm like, well, I guess that's right. Things are expensive right now. So let me start with you, Michelle. What do we expect in terms of specifics, not just of Kamala Harris's economic plan to lower costs like groceries, but to deliver on that promise, how we pay for it?
Sure. Good morning to you both. So one of the great things about Vice President Harris's campaign is that she is providing us with details. So in addition, as you mentioned, to her looking to ban price gouging on groceries and everyday items, she also has a plan to enforce that. During her tenure as president, she's going to request that the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, levy penalties against any corporations that violate that ban. She's looking to fight inflation in many ways, including the housing crisis, by using federal funds to build 3 million new housing units, to offer $25,000 in down payment assistance for just sort of your everyday person, and looking to fight rent increases. So she has a plan. And also she's laid out the Medicare crisis, and that she's been negotiating prices with Medicare to reduce the cost for 10 prescription medications that are the most popular and difficult. So I think that the American people are embracing Vice President Harris's economic policies and plans because it affects the everyday American. The reason we saw former President Trump having to use grocery props at his press conference at his New Jersey, or I think Gulf resort, is because he's simply not believable. I don't think the American public buys that he actually cares about the cost of groceries and the cost of everyday household items the way that Vice President Harris does. So she's laying out the plan to enforce it. They're trying to say that she's going to increase taxes as a result of that. But I think you have to look at the tax cuts that former President Trump wants to implement on the wealthy. And so I think that there's no plan on the other side, but Vice President Harris has a plan and a strategy to help the everyday person.
Rena, can't Trump just point to the last 4 years and that's why the grocery bills are up? What's his economic strategy at this point?
Well, that's entirely it. His team believes that they can really cruise and ride that tide that takes them to a message that says you can't trust the Biden-Harris administration. So I frequently get asked, do we think it's a good idea, Rena, for Harris to either get cozy with Biden's policies or to try to walk away from them? The reality is she can't really distance herself from them at that point because they've had 4 years in the White House. But I always try to remind folks, Marnie, how important it is to remember we've come out of a pandemic. And that pandemic put significant strains on our supply chain. And if we don't consider those points there, then we don't understand how we got here. And I do think when you're looking at the numbers, all the Biden administration's got to do, and now VP Harris, is say 2.9%. That's the number. We're looking at how much that's down. Inflation is what I'm talking about. Core inflation still remains a problem. But what I hear from Harris and Walz now is that they at least have a plan to tackle it. Yesterday, we heard they want to implement price controls. And a lot of conservatives stated that is a communist policy, one of the USSR. But I would push back and say, listen here, today, this morning, I woke up and Kroger grocery chain, a chain I grew up with in my hometown in West Virginia, has said, we're going to lower prices. So when you start talking a talk that puts some pressure on certain actors to do the right thing, and by that I mean corporations doing the right thing and lowering costs for their consumers, then we start to see that maybe they're onto something. From the Trump side, I didn't hear anything that I felt was worthy of really porting out to the American public yesterday. It was more grievance, and it was more, you can't trust her, but I'm not sure that I can trust him and Vance to implement anything that could take us to, again, sustained lower prices on the grocery shelf.
Yeah, he's being criticized for not being specific enough on the economy and also continued name calling. So Trump was asked about his personal attacks against his opponent. Here's what he said.
I think I'm entitled to personal attacks. I don't have a lot of respect for her. I don't have a lot of respect for her intelligence. She certainly attacks me personally. She actually called me weird. He's weird. It was just a soundbite. And she called JD and I weird.
I mean, all of it seems pretty childish to me, but politics is politics. Rena, does this cost him votes?
Yes, with independent voters. You know, they're tired of this nonsense, Marnie, the nonsense that doesn't speak to, again, their daily problems and the problems that we face as a nation from abroad. He continues to go for the low blows. What right does he have to attack her? And frankly, weird is the word that I would rather my preschool age children hear than the other language that he has hurled at her and so many people, whether here domestically or globally. His name calling is frankly just a projection of his insecurity and a projection that they've got nothing else. You know, I've looked at Project 2025. That is not for small government conservatives like me, Marnie. It doesn't speak to what we want to see in government again. I want to see, again, some responsible legislating. Trump, with his continued character attacks and his lack of ability to stay on script and talk about policy, that just tells me I can't trust him. And I don't want that back in office because the people he's going to surround himself with can't be trusted either.
A final question for you, Michelle. Harrison Waltz embracing an underdog status out there on the campaign trail, despite her surge in the polls. Here's how they frame their strategy.
Our campaign is the underdog campaign.
Oh, yeah.
And with our joy, we also have to understand that we're still up against some forces.
Yes.
That are trying to divide our country. It pains me the kind of division and the stoking of divisions that has taken place,
Yes.
right?
I was just speaking, Michelle, with my colleague Leland Vittert, and he said she's trying to paint herself as a populist candidate versus a progressive candidate. How does she walk this balance on all the issues that we've been talking about as she conveys her vision for the future to the American people and distances herself some from the administration?
Well, I think she continues to be relatable, and she continues to draw the connection for the American people to how her policies, her economic policies and platform and initiatives will affect and help the everyday lives of people, from housing to groceries shopping to Medicare to prescriptions. And so long as she can continue to draw that connection and help the American people to see that she's not just an extreme progressive, as Trump's camp tries to portray her as, but she is someone who genuinely cares about the American people and what they're going through on a day-to-day basis. That is what's resonating. And so the reason why she also paints her campaign as the underdogs is because she doesn't want anyone to get complacent. When you hear numbers like the Harris campaign raised $310 million in the month of July of 2024 since the announcement, when you hear numbers that people are forming, having these Zoom calls with 44,000 people for all kinds of demographics, Black women, Black men, white women, white men, just all kinds of demographics, you would think, well, she's galvanized the country so much that maybe she doesn't need my personal support. But every person matters and every vote is going to count. And so that's why she's taken this approach. But I think the American people appreciate how relatable she's been. And I think they buy her genuinity and the optimism that she has for the future of the country versus a candidate who was obsessed, quite frankly, with himself. And that's the stark contrast that the American people have.
Yeah, the criticism remains relatable on her terms, right? She hasn't made herself yet available for some unscripted moments and unfettered questions for the press. A fun discussion. Rena, Michelle, thank you for your time on this Friday.
Thanks for having me.
All right.